Thank you very much, and I'm going to start the questioning process. I know the budget request speaks to rental assistance, but I would like to focus on housing production, especially affordable housing. There's a lot of players involved in increasing the housing supply, including local, state, and federal governments, banks, commercial developers, and nonprofit organizations. These entities can be involved in regulatory oversight, funding through grants and loans, or a combination of both. As this is your first time before the committee, I'd like to put a quarter in the machine, so to speak, and let you talk about how the administration sees the role of the federal government in increasing housing supply relative to other actors, and then secondly, HUD's role relative to other federal entities.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, one of our first priorities was to look at the regulatory environment. And, burdensome regulations have really crippled home building in our country. From a federal level, I made mention of the affirmatively further and fair housing rule, which we took down to restore flexibility back to localities, back to states. And also, when you look at some of the burdensome regulations on our local level, where builders and developers, 40% of building a multifamily project is regulation. 20 to 25% of building a single-family project is in regulations. And so tearing down and making those regulations easing the burden will unleash the creativity, unleash the ingenuity of our developers and private builders around our country. We need about 7 million units of housing in our country, multifamily, single-family, manufactured housing, duplexes, condos. And so, having said that, Secretary Burgum and I from the Department of Interior signed a joint task force MOU to identify underutilized federal lands, about 500 million acres the Department of Interior has, and to look at those and say, where can we build more housing around our country on our federal lands while protecting our national forests, while protecting our national parks and the beauty of our country, but utilizing this land to build more affordable housing and all types of housing. Also, HUD is, as you know, the leader and holds the code for manufactured homes. Manufactured homes are a great alternative, if you will, in building homes, affordable homes around our country. And so we're working very hard to make sure that those codes are up to date, as a lot of codes need to be up to date. But manufactured housing is also one thing that we can do from a HUD standpoint to increase the housing supply. So in summation, taking down the regulatory environment, the MOU we have with Department of Interior, the manufactured housing, and also restoring flexibility and control and creativity, if you will, back to localities.
And Secretary Turner, I've spoken with you before about my Respect State Housing Laws Act, which would repeal a section of the pandemic-era CARES Act of 2020 that continues to require many landlords and property owners to issue a 30-day notice to vacate before filing to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent. As you know, we're no longer facing a pandemic. This supposedly temporary eviction provision needs to end and return the statute to its pre-COVID requirements. However, on December the 13th of 2024, HUD published a final rule titled 30-Day Notification Requirements Prior to Termination of Lease for Non-Payment of Rent. The rule requires tenants to receive a written notice at least 30 days before a formal judicial eviction is filed to non-payment of rent if they live in public housing or one of the several project-based rental assistance properties. Will you rescind this rule to return eviction policies back to the state and local level in order to help housing providers meet their financial obligations and continue to provide affordable housing? And if you plan to rescind this harmful rule, when will you do it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, housing affordability is of utmost priority for myself and our team at HUD. And to answer your question, this issue has been raised to us, and I know that we are committed to working with you and your staff to make sure that this issue is resolved. And so, yes, ma'am, I commit to working with you to make sure that housing is affordable again, and you best be assured that we've talked about this and the issue has been addressed.
Thank you. And the last one for right now is, like other agencies across the government, HUD programs, especially in the case of rental assistance, can be a high-risk area for improper payments. In some cases, rental subsidies exceed what a household is eligible to receive, and in other cases, the payments are too low. And while the GAO notes that reducing improper payments is critical to safeguarding federal funds and could help achieve cost savings, the HUD Office of Inspector General reported last month that the department is unable to estimate improper payments for the tenant-based and project-based Section 8 programs, its two largest rental assistance programs. In April, the acting IG testified that HUD has uniquely struggled to identify and mitigate the risk of improper payments. Mr. Secretary, how is HUD prioritizing fixes to its improper payments problem, and what step will the new leadership in the Office of Chief Financial Officer, Public and Indian Housing, and the Office of Housing be taking this year to resolve the GAO and the IG concerns?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, we have the best CFO in the country, and Mr. Irv Dennis, who was in the previous administration with Dr. Carson. We had clean audits during Dr. Carson's tenure here, and now, we do have a bit of a issue on our hands, but having Irv Dennis back and his team in the CFO's office and our Office of PIH and Housing, they are doing a top-to-bottom review of this improper payment issue, and it will get resolved, and we will be in compliance, and we look forward to hearing from you and the committee and working with you on this, but Irv Dennis and his team are on top of this. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Senator Gillibrand.